Viewer Thomas F9869, here is the question. Asked me, when I pack these things like my VHF radio, my PLB, and my satellite phones, do I put these things in Ziploc bags, but they also shroud them in bubble wrap to protect them from hard objects like shovels and snow stakes? Thomas, that is a super good question. And by the way, viewer, ask a question in the video, in the comments, and I will do my best to get to that, either making a video or answering your question. So definitely please keep these questions coming. But what do you do with these things that have delicate antennas, especially the satellite phone? The PLB is pretty tough, but still that's a consideration of you don't want to break these things. Well, when I travel in large expedition style, usually I'll have something like my solar panels here that are in a Ziploc, and they're actually decently rigid. Not too bad. And then the delicates go in there. I'll stuff them in there. That sort of thing. So I've got my delicates in there, and I get that ziplocked. Obviously it's packed better sort of thing, but it gets worked down. And then what I do is I put that gear in another bag, and maybe even another bag depending on what's going on there. So I just literally jam those in the bags. Well, you get the idea. I get those all jammed in a bag, and once I get that all jammed in a bigger bag, I make sure that the satellite antenna is especially protected. But by the time you pack everything in these bags, what you discover is that they actually turn into a pretty hard, solid mass. Now, obviously the LCD screen and everything, if I had my shovel pressed up against it or something, could it totally break? Absolutely. So you do have to be careful about that. But what I've discovered is where I put my ice axe, my shovel, and everything is in a completely different location than what I call my tech package. Usually my tech package ends up being a really big bag that's almost 20 liters. And sometimes I use these Eagle Creek bags, these little rectangular jobs, and they actually protect better than just a floating Ziploc. I use these in Antarctica, but in Greenland I got away with this. And these little cube sort of bags are super good. They have a nice shape. Allow me to put my satellite phone and everything else in there, wherever that thing is, and my VHF radio. I get that all put in there. I make sure to take off antennas and disassemble everything that I can. Now, some people would argue for safety, if you're in trouble and you have the antenna, take it apart and you got to screw that in. Well, here's the hard reality. If you break the antenna because you didn't take it apart or disassemble it for transport, you're completely toast. So I subscribe to the theory of take it all apart, make it as compact as possible to reduce the likelihood of breakage. But that's literally what I do, Thomas and everyone else, is I get everything packed in a pretty substantial bag, so where it's really hard, and I'm very mindful to put the LCDs together so the satellite phone mates up with the VHF, and I get that all packed in there, and I double check, and I get something pretty solid around this antenna because it's got a piece of metal in there, but it's still pretty delicate, so you have to be very, very careful. I don't use bubble wrap on this sort of thing. Glad my collar is flipping up, because it's just something else for me to mess with and then package. And this bag, the tech bag, ends up being super huge anyway, so I don't want even more volume on that. So I've never used bubble wrap. I don't know anybody that does. But if you're really worried about it, take an underwear or another shirt, pack it in there, wrap it around. Don't carry extra weight and extra volume just because of protection, because you've got extra clothes, extra items that you can totally pack into your electronic and tech bag to protect those items, rather than bringing an individual item whose sole and only purpose is to protect the tech. Is find something else in your kit bag that you can use, like solar panels or this insane bag of charging junk. I mean, this is all the cables that I had to bring with me. So when I put my antenna and everything in there, it's actually quite well protected by the cables. And since I have to carry these anyway, they act as a double bubble wrap. So that's something, it's a real challenge to protect your technology when you're on an expedition, skiing or whatever. But definitely be mindful. That is a very good point of how to protect your gear when you're out in the wilderness. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And thanks for your questions.